There's a moment every gardener eventually reaches where compost stops being the miracle fix it used to be. You pile it on, but the plants don't respond the same way. The soil looks tired. Water pools instead of soaking in. Growth slows down, even though you're doing everything the books and garden centres recommend. That's where I was not long ago, staring at beds that were technically fed, but biologically starved. Compost wasn't the problem. The problem was that compost alone couldn't rebuild soil that had lost its microbial engine. Then I came across a method that gardeners in older agrarian cultures depended on long before commercial composting became the modern standard. It's a technique built around fermentation, decomposition, and the natural power of microbes to break down organic material far faster than a static compost pile ever could. And the best part is that it can be done with materials most people already have lying around. This fermented mulch mix doesn't replace compost forever, but it outperforms it in speed, soil activation, and microbial density. If you're looking for a low-cost, fast-acting way to rebuild dead or depleted ground, this is the technique worth learning. The real secret is that soil responds faster to fermented material than finished compost. Compost is stable organic matter. It's great for long-term fertility, but it isn't the quickest way to wake up soil, because most of the microbial activity has already slowed down by the time compost reaches the garden. Fermented mulch, on the other hand, is in the middle of its breakdown cycle. That means it is releasing acids, enzymes, and microbial metabolites right when the soil needs them most. These compounds attract worms, loosen compacted zones, and spark fungal activity almost immediately. This is the same reason ancient farmers buried partially decomposed plant material around their crops. They weren't waiting months for compost. They were fueling soil with live, active decomposition. To create this fermented mulch mix, you start with any carbon-rich organic material that is already partially broken down or easy to soften. Dry leaves, chopped weeds without seeds, grass clippings that have begun to heat up, shredded corn stalks, and even food scraps like wilted cabbage leaves all work. The key is moisture and microbial inoculation. This is where fermentation comes in. When you combine these materials with a small amount of carbohydrate water, such as leftover rice, water or a tablespoon of molasses diluted into a bucket of water, microbes kick into gear and begin digesting the material before it even touches the soil. The fermentation process is what transforms ordinary mulch into a soil-activating powerhouse. This method works best when the organic material is contained loosely for a short fermentation period. A simple woven feed sack, a perforated bucket, or a loosely stacked pile covered with a cloth is enough. The aim is to create conditions where the material stays moist but not waterlogged, warm but not hot, and exposed to just enough oxygen to avoid turning anaerobic. Over the next 3 to 7 days, the mulch warms, softens, and begins to smell slightly sweet or tangy. This is the sign that the beneficial microbes are doing their job. This fermentation window is short. You're not waiting for the material to fully break down. You're giving it just enough time to become biologically active so that once applied to soil, the reaction continues underground. The material becomes an attractant, not just a cover. It draws life into the topsoil instead of simply sitting on top as a dry barrier. The application step is where the magic becomes visible in the soil almost immediately. Once the mulch has fermented, it should be applied in a loose, airy layer. The soil should be moist before you lay the material down, because fermentation works best when microbes can move freely into the surface zone. Spread the mulch so it covers the ground without smothering it. If you can see occasional gaps of soil between patches of the material, you're doing it correctly. Those gaps allow airflow, fungal spread, and worm movement. Within a few days, the soil under this fermented mulch begins to darken. If you lift a section gently, you'll notice tiny fungal threads colonizing the material. The soil becomes more crumbly. Water starts sinking in instead of rolling off. In some cases, small worms appear almost immediately because they're attracted to the acids and microbial presence in the fermented layer. This is the kind of rapid activation that compost rarely delivers on its own. Gardeners can use this method in raised beds, in-ground rows, container gardens, orchard rings, and even compacted walkways that need rehabilitation. On a small scale, a handful of fermented mulch around young pepper or tomato plants can noticeably thicken stems and deepen leaf colour in a week. On a larger scale, a full bed mulched this way can shift from dull, pale soil to living, fungal-rich earth in under a month. The speed surprises people the first time they try it, because most of us have been conditioned to think soil recovery must take years. This method gives growers a low-cost way to rebuild soil without depending on purchased compost. The beauty of fermented mulch is that it uses whatever plant-based material you already have access to. A gardener in an urban apartment can use leftover vegetable scraps and shredded paper. Someone with a backyard can use fallen leaves or cut grass. A homesteader can use half-dry pasture cuttings or crop residues. In every case, the fermentation process amplifies the material's impact, turning scraps into soil-building fuel. If this breakdown of the technique helps you rethink how you manage your organic waste and your soil fertility, then this video has done its job. There are countless ways to grow more food with fewer inputs, and most of them come from older traditions we've forgotten. If you want more practical, historically grounded methods like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel, share the video with others, and help grow a community that relies on knowledge instead of expensive supplies. This fermented mulch mix is one of the simplest ways to revive tired soil, and once you try it, you won't be going back to store-bought compost nearly as often.